Let me ask you a fundamental business question, which will be critical to your success. Do you know how to position your brand in order to win? And are you an expert in brand awareness? Well, according to Forbes, influencer marketing is no longer an option if you want to stand out amongst a crowded field. When creating a new brand or ensuring that your existing one has staying power. Forbes reports 90% of people are more likely to trust a recommended brand even if that recommendation comes from a stranger. Fabi Paolini is a brand strategist who assists coaches, consultants, and other experts in positioning themselves as premium brands which attract high-end clients by upgrading their marketing through magnetic messaging. She's quickly become the leading authority on brand messaging and has generated over $1.5 million in sales over the last 3 years by working with some of the most transformational consultants and coaches from around the world. So I've got one question. Are you ready to level up your marketing game to close more deals and put more money in your pockets as an entrepreneur, coach, or consultant? Have I piqued your interest enough for you to stick around? I hope so, because Paolini joined me this week to tell all of us how we can position our brands in order to win. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. To welcome you to the program, and I'm super excited to talk to you this afternoon all about brand awareness. Great to see you, and happy Friday.
You too. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, right?
That's true.
That's right. So, Fabi, then tell me that you're a brand strategist that helps coaches and consultants elevate themselves by positioning themselves as premium brand. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about all the great work that you do.
Yes, absolutely. Well, my focus is on brand messaging and brand design, both of those aspects. And I really focus on helping people be seen as authorities and really be able to connect with the right audience more than anything else, to connect with their people so that they can, yes, make more sales, but really just make bigger impact doing the thing that they love to do the most.
Absolutely. And Fabi, tell me about the importance of networking when you're trying to get a brand out to the masses. How important is networking in your view?
Yeah, well, I think that networking is something powerful in every industry. And I think that there's a variety of reasons for that, right? I mean, traditionally, you would say, well, networking will allow you to get in front of more clients and more opportunities. But I also feel like networking is honestly about the growth that you can experience in return too, because you get to learn from so many people and connect with people and build relationships with people that you never know where they're gonna lead you. Beyond, yes, making money, great, wonderful, but you never know what else can happen from that as well.
Absolutely. And, Fabi, I know you've worked with hundreds of entrepreneurs and coaches and consultants about building brand awareness and really getting into, as you said, making them the authority on their issue by really using magnetic messaging. So let's dive into magnetic messaging and really amplifying it and what that means
Yes.
to you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, for me, when we talk about magnetic messaging, there's so much noise in the market. There's so many people out there saying and selling somewhat similar things to what others are doing, that we really need to find a way to differentiate ourselves and stand out and be able to build connection with our audience, really be able to build that relationship that we talked about. And sometimes, obviously, when you're doing it in person, it can be easy, but with the world that we're living in, where it has to be all online, it's really, or not all, but you know what I mean. It's really important for you to be able to build a message that magnetizes the right people in. And I focus on three main areas that you want to include within your message. The first one is understand what it is that makes you what it is that makes you different from everybody else in your field. And there always is something that will make you different. People sometimes think, well, really, is there something? Like, I don't know. But there's always an angle. There's always a piece of you, of your personality, of your experience that you can include into communicating who you are. And in a way that really resonates with people. Then the second part is really understanding who your ideal audience is. Really going deep into, well, who is that ideal buyer? How do I communicate to them in a way that resonates what I'm saying and that makes them feel like, oh, you are the person that can solve my problem? And then the third element from that magnetic messaging is understanding the outcome that you deliver. What is the result? What is it that you actually help people with? So when we bring those three pieces together in a really powerful way, that's what makes up magnetic messaging.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, to a more larger and broader degree, I'm curious to get your thoughts on how important clarity of messaging is. You just went through your roadmap, but I'm going to give you the floor to talk to me about clarity of messaging and how important that is to you.
Yeah, well, clarity is extremely important because a confused buyer doesn't buy, right? If you aren't able to very clearly articulate what it is that you do, it's going to make it really difficult for somebody who doesn't know you to say, I want to buy that. Well, buy what, right? So you really definitely need to have clarity to be able to build that. And it's extremely important in the online marketing space as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Fabi, I'm going to share just a little bit about myself. Anybody that listens or watches this podcast knows that I was born with what's called spastic quadriplegia cerebral palsy, and I work every day. It just means that I don't have enough oxygen in my legs to walk normally, and I work every day to build my own sort of inclusive brand that take down the barriers. So I'm curious, when you think about building inclusive brands where everyone is included, I'm curious to ask you what comes to mind for you when we talk about inclusive branding.
Well, I love that. And I think that what matters most is, or how I view business in general, it's all about elevating everybody, like taking everybody to the top, right? That's how I view things. And that's how I like to work in my own business. How do I bring people up with me? Not only obviously like my clients, but in general, that's what I communicate. That's what I stand for. So for me, inclusivity is really thinking about, well, how do we bring in more people up? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And, Fabi, I'm also curious to ask you about, for anyone that's just starting out a new brand, what do you think is the key to sort of stand out from the crowd, especially if you're in a saturated marketplace?
Yeah, well, you really want to get clarity, coming back to that word, around what are the things that make you different. I focus on 6 specific things. I call these the 6 S's of singularity, right? So the first one is your stories, or are your stories. What are your stories? Your big picture life story, and then also those little stories that have brought you to where you are. The second one are your successes. What are your success stories? What are the results that you've achieved for yourself, or maybe for clients, or even for friends or people that you've worked with in the past? The third thing are your skills. What are those things that you're really good at, whether you've studied and you have all the credentials at, or you're just innately really great at those things. The next one is what I call your superpower, and it's essentially your brand archetype, your personality, your way of doing things and how you're perceived. The next one is your stand, which stands for what you stand for, meaning what you believe, what you stand for, and what you're against. So those kind of like more polarizing views. And then the last one is your steps. And steps are about your processes, your methodologies, your frameworks, your unique way of doing things and taking people into having results, right? So those 6 things, when you're able to really bring them together, it really makes you who you are and makes you different from everybody else. And everybody has those 6 things kind of uniquely built out for them. So it's all about, how do I communicate them to my audience in a way that makes them see that I'm different from everybody else?
Yeah, and to your 6S philosophy, I'm wondering if you're an established brand. What of those 6 S's do you think people need to really emphasize so that they don't stay stagnant and sort of rest on their laurels if they're an established brand?
That's really good. Okay, so I think that within those, probably there's 2 things that I would focus on more than anything else if you're already established. The first one is your steps, meaning building a framework, building a system and a methodology. I talk to a lot of people that have been doing what they're doing for years, have all of the credentials, have all of this expertise, all of this experience, but they haven't really turned that into a system that necessarily is like a repeatable process that they can go through with their clients. So I think that building, and it's all about positioning and packaging, like really packaging what you do in a unique way will really help you take your brand to the next level. And the second one is your stand. Really being a little bit more polarizing and saying, you know what, this is what I believe in and this is what I don't believe in, and these are my reasons, and are you with me or are you not? That really will allow you to really just differentiate yourself from other people even more.
Yeah, absolutely. And Fabi, I also wanted to talk to you about the importance of a value proposition. You know, when you create a brand, no matter what strand of business you're in, it's always important to solve a problem or bring value to your customer, isn't it, when we talk about value proposition?
Yeah. So with the value proposition, it's really about figuring out, what is that outcome? What is the actual outcome, the result, or the benefit that I can deliver for my clients? How do I simplify that in the clearest way possible? So for example, in my case, my value proposition is helping coaches, consultants, and experts attract ready-to-invest clients by positioning themselves as premium brands. So we want to try to figure out, like, what is that one sentence that sums up what it is that we do, and how do I make our marketing and our content and our message in general, and even in the specifics, really reflect that at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know over the last 3 years that you've generated more than $1.5 million in the last 3 years working with transformational coaches and consultants. So tell me how you've been able to turn such a consistent profit and some of the interesting people and stories that you've had a chance to work with.
Well, it really comes down to relentless determination. I think that just having that never give up attitude definitely works. And for me, it's always about figuring out, how do I become better as a leader and as a coach? And how do I become better in my craft? And continuously finding new, creative, and more powerful ways to communicate what I do, and effectively articulate them to my people. So the better that I've gotten at my message and really communicating my value, the more successful I've been. And that has been really the key to building success, because people think, well, you need to go viral, you need to have a bunch of followers. I don't have that. I don't have a lot of followers. I am not a viral, like I'm not an influencer, yet I've been able to build success because the message that I have, even if the audience isn't massive, it resonates with these people and it builds connection.
Yeah, absolutely. And Fabi, I know that you're an immigrant from Venezuela. You're a wife, a mother of 3 kids, and you value things like freedom, spirituality, and sort of the flow of life. So tell me about your life sort of principles.
Yeah, exactly.
And how they work. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm a busy person, as you can imagine. I have 3 kids. I have a 7-year-old, I have a 4-year-old, and I have an 20-month-old, I believe.
Where do you find time to do anything? No,
yeah, well, I do have a lot of support and help at home,
well,
but I really value just being able to be free with my time and doing the, I mean, I'm busy, obviously. I'm not going to come here and tell you, well, I don't do anything. I always have something that I'm doing, but I'm also very, very purposeful and intentional behind what I'm doing each day and how I'm spending my day. So I'm super excited, for example, to be spending my time with you right now, right? It really comes down to building a business that allows you to thrive. And I love talking to people. I love being able to have conversations like this one and sharing my story and doing more of this. So it's like, how do I leverage the things that I love to grow my business, but also just to like fill my soul up because I'm doing the things that I love. And that is really what I stand for. And that's what I want my daughters to see as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder your thoughts also about not being afraid to take the leap to follow your passion in life. When you think of that, what comes to mind for you?
Well, if you understood a part of my story, you'd get why that resonates. So I am, like you mentioned before, I'm originally from Venezuela. I came to the US at the end of 2015, and in 2016, we made a decision to stay here. And it was a difficult decision. My country was falling apart. I'm not going to get into what happened, but it was falling apart. And we had to make that decision to stay here and take the leap of faith and say, you know what, we're going to stay in the US. We're going to, at the time, I only had one little baby. We want our children to grow up in the US and have more freedom in their lives and all these different things. And it meant for me really just taking that leap of faith and believing in myself and building my business. So I think that in building success, at the time, I didn't know what my business was going to look like or what was going to happen, obviously. But I really think that those desires that are in your heart are there for a reason. And your instinct is telling you these things for a reason. Listen to those things, pay attention, because if you don't pay attention, life is going to make you pay attention in one way or another. It's going to sit you down on a chair and be like, listen, buddy, you got to pay attention. So pay attention and take the leap when your heart is calling you to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Fabi, I'm curious and fascinated to ask you about where your passion for life comes from, because you seem like a very energetic person in the few minutes that I've had a chance to chat with you. So where does your passion for life come from?
It's probably because I'm Latin. So that has probably something to do with that. I think it's because when you do what you love, you're doing what you love. And it's inevitable that passion and fire and heart is going to come through everything, right? So yeah, it comes from me being able to have built a life where I get to do what I love every day and where I prioritize doing the things that I love every day. And that's how my heart comes through.
Yeah, absolutely. And just going back to marketing for a second, I'm curious to ask you, what makes someone a premium buyer and the Ursula effect? Because I know that those are two things that you help your clients sort of work their way through. through, so I'm wondering if you can tell me about them.
Yes. Okay. So what I view as somebody who is a premium buyer, it's not necessarily somebody that just happens to have millions of dollars laying around, but it's somebody who will value the payoff more than the payment. Meaning it's somebody that is more focused on saving time than on saving money, right? So, I mean, you can be a premium buyer and still want to save money, but you have a big vision, you have a big desire, you are here to make a big impact, you want to do great things, or you want to have a great relationship, or you want to have great health, and you're here, you're visionary, vision driven, and not so much focus on the day-to-day problem. I mean, everybody's focused on the day-to-day problems, but what I mean is that is what drives your decisions, right? And what I find is that when you work with somebody that is a visionary and a premium buyer, like I call them, these are the people that are action takers, that are resourceful, that will make things happen and will get amazing results through the work that you do. And what we don't want to do is be the Ursula. That's where the Ursula effect comes in. And for me, the Ursula, it's a reference to the movie The Little Mermaid, is the type of people that speak to the poor, unfortunate souls. So for me, the poor, unfortunate souls are people that are in victim mentality, always blaming everybody for their lives, for their problems, for their health, for their relationships, for their business, for their whatever, and not really taking responsibility for their own success. So what I've learned is that if your communication and your marketing and your content and your message is too focused on problems and too focused on pain and too focused on, oh my gosh, you're stuck and your life is falling apart, you're going to end up attracting people who are in that victim mentality and will not for the most part be able to invest in hiring a high ticket services if that's what you're selling. So we really want to be very mindful with our words and speak more to that visionary, to the champion, to the driven hero, so that we call them in more.
Yeah, and Fabi, tell me about the importance of sort of narrowing your messaging in order to really focus on what makes you an authority. Because if you try to spread yourself too thin, then your message sort of loses its luster. So tell me about narrowing your messaging and marketing and how important that is.
Yeah, well, you really want to make sure you go very specific. And I know that sometimes people are afraid of going too specific in their message and their niche because they think that they're leaving people out, when actually the absolute opposite is true. When you're able to speak to people in a very specific way, letting them know how you solve their very specific problem, it makes them see you as the solution that can, or the person that can help them solve the problem, right? So we want to create content that is very narrow. And I know, again, people are afraid of doing this because they think it's going to lead people out, when in fact, what it's going to do is attract more of the right people in.
Yeah, absolutely. And Fabi, tell me, what does it mean to you to maximize every moment of life? What does it mean to maximize life, in your opinion?
I think that really leveraging your strengths and the things that you're great at and your things that you're passionate about, right? So really figuring out what those things are and then delegating, hiring it out, deleting, removing anything else that doesn't fall within that. It's like you're going to Marie Kondo your life, right? Does this bring me joy? Does this not bring me joy? It doesn't bring me joy, I'm going to either delegate it or delete it. And if it does, well, then do more of that. And that's going to help you maximize your life as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I ask you also about social media marketing? Because, sometimes it can be your best friend, and sometimes it can be a curse. So tell me, when you're creating a brand, how cognizant do you have to be of your social media presence as well?
Well, you want to make sure that your social media presence is very consistent with how you're showing up everywhere, right? Your website, but I do think that it's funny because it feels like it's a theme. You want to figure out what your strengths are. If you're great at video, well, then say, okay, well, I'm going to do TikTok, or I'm going to do YouTube, or I'm going to do Instagram Reels. If you're like, I hate video, but you're great at writing, we'll focus more on that. So at first you need to figure out what your strengths are, and then whatever that is, be consistent at it. Because what I know to be true is that momentum will not be built if you keep on stopping. And if you're like, I'm going to do this, and you do it for 3 weeks, and then you disappear for 3 months, and then come back for a week, and that's never going to work. So you really want to make sure that you're being consistent at it. And to be consistent, you have to figure out, well, what do I want to be consistent at? Like, what is something that I can guarantee that I'll be consistent at? And that's when you do the things that you love.
Yeah, absolutely. And Fabi, I'm curious to end our conversation with 2 questions. And the first one is, if they make your life into a movie, what do you think the plot line of that movie would be, and what would be the title?
Oh man. I think it would be something about my level of resilience and growth, because I think that people often believe or want overnight success, and I don't think that really exists. I think that success is something that you work at. Well, I don't necessarily feel like you have to kill yourself to build success, because obviously not, but I do think that it really comes down to that relentless determination, that fierce ambition. So I don't know if that's the title of the movie, because that sounds like I would not be a nice person, but it's also about just bringing more heart. So I don't know, take for that what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. And Fabi, my final question for you has to do with your own individual and personal legacy, and how you want that to be defined.
Well, I think that it's really about, like I mentioned earlier, lifting people up and making people feel great and making people feel seen. That is something that really matters to me, just showing up in full authenticity and heart and connection, and shining that light on other people as well. So that's what it would be.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, tell me, if people want to get connected with you, what's the best way they can do that?
Yes, you can find me everywhere as Fabi Paolini, and then you can also go to readytoinvestclients.com, and I have a training that walks you through exactly what you need to do to be able to attract those ready to invest clients, premium clients specifically, as an online coach, consultant, or expert. So it's readytoinvestclients.com or FabiPaolini.com, Fabi Paolini on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on everywhere.
Well, fabulous. Well, I have to tell you, you certainly brought the energy and enthusiasm to this conversation. So I want to thank you for that. And the good work that you do to build a brand and increase brand awareness. Your work in the space and time on my behalf is most appreciated. And I want to thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much, Kevin. It has been wonderful being on your show.